So if there's one thing I can definitely praise Ed Miliband on, is he is leading the charge, massively so, for Labour on getting the UK transitioned over to more clean energy. Now, we've covered this slightly before, well, just recently, when you may remember, of course, the co-leader of the Greens stood up in Parliament and said, "Oh, but you don't understand. What we need is not pylons. We need underground pylons, which would cost far more. And even the maintenance cost of those would be astronomical, not to mention the danger involved, not only potentially of those people digging to, do the maintenance on those pylons, but what happens if someone, say, is doing another project and they accidentally dig down and hit one of these, cables? It's a lot easier to have pylons in the air. It is a lot easier to offshore them if we do. We've just had one of the biggest consultations about a energy superhighway, as it was dubbed, coming from all the way offshore from Aberdeen right down to the Midlands of the country. And then, of course, at one point, it's got to come onshore. If you want to expand our energy infrastructure grid, you've got to have pylons, you've got to have substations. You can't get out of not building these things. And bear in mind, this is yet another clear example of 14 years of Tories not investing in infrastructure. And also, Ed Miliband really taking on the NIMBYs. Well, I don't think he has much to worry about. Just recently, there was a study that had come out asking people how NIMBY they actually were. Turns out a lot of people actually quite YIMBYs. All they need to do is have the benefits and the reason why some of this stuff is being, built and explained to them. Turns out a lot of people suddenly go, "Oh, actually, yeah, let's build this." People aren't as NIMBY as they think. And I've said this before. NIMBYs, if you've ever encountered like a NIMBY protest or something like that at your local council, you'll realize that actually the group isn't as complete as you may necessarily think. There was one recently about building a new gyratory around one of the crossroads. Turned out a lot of people were actually for doing something about these crossroads that used to be there in Kingston. And when they put forward the new gyratory, turned out Barnsley Council really didn't do a good enough job explaining what the gyratory was or what it was going to look like. But now it's actually got it. It's actually meeting with a lot of approval from those people who were actually apparently dead set against that project at one point or another. So it turns out if you explain stuff to people, people actually understand it and go, "Oh, actually, no, that's quite a good idea." So I'm really glad that Ed Miliband is leading the charge on this, and especially when it comes to the green energy rollout, because Ed Miliband is right. Every solar panel, every wind turbine, everything we put up and connect to our, energy infrastructure grid is going to help massively. It will help bring down bills. GB Energy, which is going to be investing in a lot of these, green energy things, is going to be, I think, proved to be a very good success story. He says, fingers crossed, etc. All that. I know I'm making a very, very, very big political lifeline on that. But I do really think he's right on this. I really, really do think, Ed Miliband is right on this. And, taking on, as he calls them, the blockers, the delayers, and the obstructionists. Because that's what NIMBYs do. If they cannot block this, then they find a way to obstruct it. They can't obstruct it, then they find a way to delay it by saying, "Oh, well, you need to do this environmental impact assessment," when there's already one being done. Or they'll turn around and go, "Oh, no, you need more update to them." Trust me, if you have seen NIMBYs in action, you know how they operate. You know how they work. It is, as Ed Miliband rightly puts, block, delay, obstruct. Try and kill it as much and as quickly as you can. So one of the, of course, the big things is the second Labour got in was they undid the decade-long offshore wind farm ban that really did a lot of damage to our energy infrastructure. But as we've said, when you build those, well, now you've got to get that power from those wind farms onshore where it's needed. And that is, of course, going to take pylons. It is going to take wires. And one of the things I really want to point of what he said, because he was recently at a UK energy conference about this. This is what he had to say. He said, the faster we go, the more secure that we become. Every wind turbine we put up, every solar panel we install, every piece of grid we construct helps protect families from future energy shocks. This is an argument that we need to have as a country, because the converse is also true, that every wind turbine we block, every solar farm we reject, every piece of grid we fail to build makes us now less secure and more exposed. That is why our clean energy spirit is now in the national security and energy security, as well as economic justice fight for our time. And as somebody who believes that this country suffers from deep injustice, I am determined that we will do not go from an unequal, unfair, high carbon Britain to an unequal, unfair, clean Britain. We must do this transition to tackle fuel poverty, to create good jobs, to clean up our air and improve our access to nature and quality of life. I am passionately believe that we can do this. And I think he is right. And I keep on saying this. Ed Miliband, since he has become lost the Labour leadership, if Ed Miliband had been like this back in 2015, oh boy, he would have been fantastic. And I'll tell you what now, give him the second chance. If the opportunity for leadership ever comes up, I know there's Angela Rayner. I know there are other people as well, but I'll tell you what, giving Ed Miliband another chance at the leadership, I do not think that would be a bad thing. I think Ed Miliband would really push for stuff. I think he would be Starmer, but he's Starmer if he is a lot more braver and bolder to push these things, because that is one thing he said he learned. He said he always regretted not being bold enough. And I'll tell you what, we've seen that. We've really seen that whenever we've covered Ed Miliband since the bacon sandwich days. He has become a lot more bolder in saying these things. And I think that speech there he gave at that energy conference, yeah, he gets it right. He gets it 100% right. And I've said this before about our green transition. There are MPs who get it, who absolutely get it, who get the massive opportunity this has for the UK. That we are in a race with everyone else to sort of move, to go to this transition page. And the faster we reach that finish line, the more we get there, the bigger and better benefits it will have to the UK long term. So Ed Miliband, someone who really, really gets it on a fundamental level. So I, for one, am really glad that he's saying this and that he's really, really getting out there to sort of, beat the NIMBYs and really take them on. And it's not just things like this. We're seeing them with like the house building plans as well. I think there is going to be a lot of good done from this. And it has been something that a lot of people, and even still now, even though that report came out about, actually people aren't as NIMBY as necessarily you think there are, Labour MPs are still very nervous about what local reaction has been. Well, I say this to any of those Labour MPs that are nervous. Get out there, start talking to your constituents, start talking to these groups saying, well, if we don't build these houses there, where are we going to build them? What does this say then about your sons, your granddaughters who can't afford to live in your town anymore or have to rent because there is no affordable housing for them, because you said no to this housing development. Just take them on, take them head on, because that is what a lot of people, I think, is why NIMBYism has become such an almost debilitating thing, almost in many projects, um, is that politicians have been too scared to take them on, and I think you really see this from this government, who is saying, "Yeah, we are going to take on the NIMBYs and we are going to beat them," whereas the Conservatives were like, "Oh, NIMBYs? Oh no, run for the hills! Run for the hills! The NIMBYs are coming!" So definite sea change in politics when it comes to sort of these types of issues. So as always, let me know what you think down below. I think Ed Miliband right on the money when it comes to saying some of this about green energy, getting this green transition going, and especially I really liked working in that this will help bring economic justice as well. So that is something well worth pointing out as well. So as always, let me know what you think down below. Click on the like, click on the share button, and of course, we'll see you all next time.